Travis Wayne Goodsell. So, on this Sign in the Heaven day, we have Things on the Earth, Joseph Smith translation, Revelation chapter 12, verse 1. Learning of the Jews. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I believe, finished up the funeral services for M. Russell Ballard as I went live to inspiration from the Church of Jesus Christ, not Latter-day Saints, just the Church of Jesus Christ, which is confusing because if you type in Church of Jesus Christ, you'll find ward meetings for a different church. You can tell by the electric guitar in the background. I'm serious. YouTube has yet to figure out what I'm interested in and can't get it right. Their algorithms of AI can't figure my brain out. And they definitely can't control my brain. Nonetheless, here we are with the review of the funeral, as I'm not actually watching it because it's over. I'd have to set it back and then listen to it, and so I'm just reviewing the pop-up viewer on the time continuum here. And so it appears that Dallin H. Oakes is the one conducting. So like I warned you in this morning's pre-show video, pay attention to who shows and who doesn't. So Russell Marion Nelson, no show, at least so far. I don't see him, and I don't see Holland, newly made acting president of the Quorum of 12 Apostles. I told you, it's all for show and for praise and gain of notoriety. I became the acting president while on my deathbed. He was remembered for being the greatest acting president since the previous one. And so I see the Mormon Mafia taking the casket into the chapel or the tabernacle. That's where they held it. And I'm guessing one of them is at least his relative, because he's speaking. And sure enough, they're talking about him, which they're not supposed to. We're not allowed to if our family member dies. Got to talk about Jesus and the plan of happiness. Lucifer's plan of happiness, take away agency, force everybody to obey, or be denied. And yeah, apparently there's a woman who's crying, so it's most likely his daughter. I don't know if his wife is still alive. I don't think so. I think she died, didn't she? Russell Ballard. And it's Junior, so as not to be confused with Senior, who I found a quote from him the other day in a video, live. And so click on family. Barbara Bowen. Oh, we're related. Isn't that great? Yeah, she died in 2018. I thought so. Yeah, I have cousins who are Bowens. And one of those Bowens married the German who knew Hebrew and helped Joseph Smith learn some more Hebrew in his later years. Niebuhr. Phil and Kathy Niebuhr, who have the hot springs there near the border of Wyoming and Idaho. Excellent place. Went on a couple of dates there with my cousin Bone. Good times. Good memories. No results from that. Oh, there he is. Holland made a showing. I see him on the screen now. He spoke after Cook. And so he's still alive. We'd have to listen to see if he was taking drugs at the time. He looks like he's young and fit and vibrant. Not dead yet. And then there's Oaks again. And that's it. And there's a prayer. And then everybody waits for the casket to be removed from the building. And away they go. And then Jesus. So that was it. You had Oaks, who conducted the meeting, and you have a woman with one of the roses, so it was most likely a daughter, although she could be young enough to be a granddaughter. You never know these days. You know, you've got the apostles are living up to about 100 years of age, and so you've got third great grandchildren now being born. Because everybody's getting married at 16 years of age. And then one of the pallbearers is speaking. And then another woman with the roses speaking. And then choir, and then Cook. He's speaking on Saturday, or Sunday. Sunday. They're advertising. They're plugging in an advertisement for the youth devotional on Sunday, which was postponed because it was the day before 9/11, when Nelson fell. As we found out 3 weeks later. And then Holland speaks, and then choir, and then Oaks, and that's it. Short, simple, easy breezy cover girl, or maybe it's Maybelline. And so yeah, I'm reminiscing about the 2 funerals out of the 4 that I've been to, 5 technically, because there's my mother's scandal. But I've only been to my mother's parents' funerals. And I remember sitting in the chapel for my grandmother way back in the 80s when I was a young boy. Because she wasn't supposed to live at all. She was born with a heart that was too small for her body. Doctors didn't give her long to live, and yet she lived to be a grandmother. And so when she finally died, I remember that was my first funeral, first death, first dead body, and I never cried. Her daughters, my aunts, were all bawling, and I'm just sitting there. And that was that for that. And then my grandfather, leukemia finally got him. The minimal exposure to World War II radiation is often the case for leukemia patients. And since he was an officer in World War II and was involved with radiation as a dentist, getting moved to Alaska, stationed in Alaska, to work on the soldiers who got wounded in battle. And as a result of that trauma, I purposely went into child dentistry. And because being a dentist is a lot of money to be made from the education that you get, he didn't want to take advantage of that and purposely had his prices extremely low so that poor families could bring their children there, until the government began Social Security for or the Medicaid. Was it Medicaid or Medicare for children? When they began the Medicare insurance after coming out with the RICO Act to go after the crime families in America, the crime families went underground into insurance companies and took over the government and created the insurance companies we now know today as Medicaid and Medicare. And they came to him and said, "You must raise your pricing or we will not support your business for kids who are on Medicare." And so he was forced to raise his prices because of the government extortion threat as a criminal mob organization. And he was used to that. His parents were converts to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and so he was used to paying tithing all his life. He knew about the extortion threat practice. And so, he became filthy rich because the children were the higher priority. And since the children were going to be put on Medicare anyway for being poor, then he caved. And so, he had his mansion in Ventura Hills that right before the fires in the Ventura Hills a few years ago were bulldozed after Grandma died. He had to sell the home, and my mom was pissed because he didn't consult the family. But he quickly learned that his second wife, who was his assistant at the dental practice, the secretary assistant, she was in charge of filling out the insurance papers decades ago. And it come to find out when Grandma died that she only put him in the insurance. She left out Grandma. And so there was no money for Grandma's death. And so thus he had to sell the mansion. And went into a condo complex, whatever they're called, and traded in his car for a Firebird. An old age crisis, is it? It's not a midlife crisis. And then went and married his dental assistant secretary, who was Catholic. And so that was the first Catholic wedding I attended. And that didn't last long, as he felt guilty for shaming himself in front of the family for his biological needs. And so, I obviously liked him. He tried to teach me golf, but I had too much of a baseball swing. I wasn't able to pick it up. But he had built a model train set with a mountain that the train went through, and all that stuff, and that inspired me to do one in the backyard of our Corona house. My parents said no. Well, Mom said no. It was always Mom. Dad was always at work. After I had my 86 dream, and then well, 2 dreams actually, and then the Saturday afternoon movie was King Kong, and so I was fully on into this building of a little set in the backyard. And my parents would eventually build a swimming pool after sending me off on my New York mission, for which they also had a jacuzzi right under my upper window. But yeah, lots of times going to Ventura to get my teeth worked on, and despite my rebellion against the retainer, he still was able to somewhat straighten out my lower teeth in order to go on my mission. See, that was all his work, getting those straightened out, because they were a tangled mess when I was a little boy. And so the retainers were the first stage, and because of my rebellion, there was a year in my high school time where I had to have braces, and the upper teeth, it's this tooth right here. This one got chipped, and so he had to file it down, and to make it look somewhat even, filed the other one down a little bit too. But this one, this one, that's a cap, and yes, that got banged up too. But it's on my baby tooth. There was no adult tooth up in the gums to replace it, and so it never had a reason to fall out, and never have a reason. Got gypped on the which I guess is from gypsies, and so I can't say gyp because that's racist, so I got screwed, but that's against prostitutes. Is that bigotry? So I didn't receive, I'm financially challenged in regards to the Easter Bunny paying me, well, it used to be a quarter, and it might have even been 5 cents, because I didn't know anything about money. And so the older I got, the more I was aware that there are values of money over time. But I don't think it went beyond the $5. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, I got left out of obtaining the full amount of money I could have received, like my other siblings did later on. But it also resulted in a gap situation where the tooth not being there to come in resulted in the gap that's over on this side. And so my dad, or my grandpa, had to fix my gap that I had the tooth gap, had to bring the 2 big teeth together, and thus with the missing tooth here, then this tooth has some gaps in it as well to try to even things out. So there's a oral history of my mouth with my grandpa. My grandpa was the one who had the first patent, long time beating out the Utah guy, for inventing the revolving dental chairs for his office to make things easier, because he can sit in the main spot where he does the inspection on the teeth and the fillings and the casting and all the actual surgical work, because he was a doctor, dentist, surgeon, and then there was he'd rotate him around to the next position where the x-rays were taken, and then there was the waiting station, so he can have 3 patients in those chairs at any given time, and then just rotate them around in their order, and then the dental assistant could be there to assist with the taking of the x-rays and so on. But that was his invention, and it's patented. It's in the government archives. And then some other guy claims that he did it. No. So, yeah, I learned from my grandpa about turning inspiration into reality. None of this spiritual witness crap. And so, yeah, I learned the true doctrine of the Book of Mormon early in my life as a born in the covenant, raised Mormon. Both my dad's parents didn't go to their funerals. And it's weird for Grandpa, because he died a week before my wedding. To the first wife. And so I'm concerned about controversy, because he wasn't too receptive to the marriage when he found out about it. And he was prone to heart attacks. He'd had a heart attack before, similar to Ballard. As his life, because he was a farmer up in Rexburg and sold his farm when the big companies came in and bought him out. And so he lived a wealthy lifestyle too. But instead of having a mansion, he designed and built his own home with the wealth. And it's still there in Rexburg, Idaho, despite the Teton Dam flood. He and Grandma were on vacation in Canada. They were over in the east, in like Ontario or Montreal, when he saw on the news the flood of the Teton Dam, and the footage was showing homes literally floating in the flood right by his home. That's how excellent of a builder he was, a carpenter. And so I am a carpenter's son because of that. And so my dad, because again, we were just little kids, and this was when we were in Michigan still, the Great Lakes by the grove of willow trees, Ezekiel 17. And I remember being at the kitchen table, and Dad coming and saying his goodbyes as he was gonna meet Lowell, my uncle, there in Rexburg to help with the cleaning up of the house. As still to this day you can see the flood lines on the buildings that were difficult to get out. But the house did get the flooding, mud and stuff in the floors, and there was some damage to the family photos. And so my dad not only helped to try to repair the damage on the photos, but then went and would go on to obtain a scanner when it was invented, so that he can get those photos scanned into a digital file to preserve them, and then would go on to utterly destroy by throwing away all my photos from my childhood, trying to erase my history. But that's a different story. And then Grandma, she had Alzheimer's, and so because it's my dad's mom, I will not get Alzheimer's. But there is the marker in my DNA that a potential future generation, when paired up with another person with the marker, therefore have a higher likelihood of having children that will have Alzheimer's. But as for me and myself, I don't forget. And so yeah, I was there when I came back to Rick's College to finish off after being a year in Canada with the first wife. And we didn't know it at the time, but I, in retrospect, now realize that we were there with the onset of my grandmother's Alzheimer's. She was all by herself in the home, and that seems to be what escalated it, is not being around family and familiar people. She retrograded into fuller forgetfulness, as when I came I came to Utah after graduating at the University of Lethbridge in Canada. My dad had to take her in. Mom and Dad had to take her in their Riverton home. Yeah, it is actually that way. And they wanted me to come live with them in the basement while I worked on paying off the student loans and start working on getting money so that I can have my own home and white picket fence and a separate car for the wife and credit cards for her to go shopping while I was out working. Which dream never came true quick enough for her, and she bailed and abandoned the marriage, stole the kids, fled the country, got the Utah government to blame me for it. Chaos ensued, and here I am. And so I was still living in the basement apartment, which I was expected to build. That was the trap. They told me over the phone, yeah, we have a house in Riverton. It's got a basement apartment. You can come and stay with your family and work on paying off the student loans. The Olympics is coming in 2002. And so there's lots of jobs that are popping up all over Utah. And, the first couple of weeks, probably even a month, we were in their Kearns apartment in the living room until the house was finished. And even then, it wasn't done right. They plastered over the ventilation system in the basement. Oh dear God, the quality of contractors in Utah and the big old scandals. And yeah, I would find out that I am allergic to the insulation Had the boils of Job all over my body, along with the rash and the breathing problems. And and then deciphered Paleo-Hebrew within 6 months of coming down to Utah. Record-breaking time. See, Jean Champollion took too long. I did it in 6 months. Yeah. But, and eventually Grandma would arrive. And since I was still living in the basement, and since I think Terrellyn had left by then, or was about to leave, something like that. There was still the extra room available upstairs, and so since she needed to be constantly watched by then, and taken care of, it was bad. She didn't recognize my dad. He was a stranger, and there he is, seeing her naked, giving her a bath. So she put up a lot of fights with my dad, not knowing he's my dad. I was her son. And she was caught one day as she was left alone at the home. She had wandered out and made it into the middle of the street and was rambling about how her 2 missing newborn twins can't be found. She never had twins. She had the 2 older daughters and then the 2 younger sons. No twins. But with Alzheimer's, she was being fooled into believing that she had twin babies in her old age. And they were missing, and so she was wandering out in the middle of the street looking for them, and collapsed because she was old and exhausted. And so she was falling and she couldn't get up. And so it got so violent, even though she was unable to keep her head up, and she was confined to a wheelchair. It got so bad that they placed her in a home, and she died a week or 2 later. The loss of people she knew escalated the Alzheimer's. And so, I've seen news reports about how those with Alzheimer's remember things with music and such like that. I can understand there is a connection with antisocial behavior or being abandoned by your family and the increasing onset of Alzheimer's. And so having a strong family support in your old age, as used to be done in the olden days, helps lessen the impact of Alzheimer's. So Irene's wife, dementia, finally died in her old age, 10 years younger than 8 years younger, I think, or 7 years. It was about a decade from Irene. But, memory lane with funerals. And so, my Grandpa Smith's funeral, I remember putting the rose on the casket. I was given a rose and I was told to put it on the casket when the time came. Don't know what that's about, but my grandma, no, I didn't go. The family was already attacking me and threatening to kick me out, even though there was no cause to do so, and saying, they were going to move and get a retirement home, and so I needed to get out. You ruined my life and abetted my first wife to abandon me and flee the country and abduct the children. And now you're blaming me? I do see that a lot in Mormons. They love to blame the victims, never themselves. And so, yeah, that caused me to petition the state of Utah for redress of grievances, which I learned quickly 2 weeks later is called a terrorist threat. The First Amendment, petition the government for a redress of grievances, is called a terrorist threat in the state of Utah. Wow, I wonder what freedom of religion is in the state of Utah, because the church wants religious freedom passed in the government. So apparently, the First Amendment means nothing to the state of Utah. Freedom of the press? Yeah, just watch our local press cover church news scandals. And so, sure enough, more women are popping out of the woodwork. Oh yeah, I was raped by Tim Ballard too. Another lawsuit. She's claiming rape by Tim Ballard. Do you understand what assault means, dear? It doesn't mean harassment. It means you were raped. In actual penetration. Are you sure you were raped? Are you sure? Because if you go through with this lawsuit and you're lying in court, you get in trouble. And then, of course, Sean Reyes finally responded. I've done nothing wrong. I don't know Tim Ballard. I've never seen him. I take pictures with lots of people. I'm an open book. I'm fully cooperating with the investigation into the audit of me. They'll find no smoking gun. I'm the lead prosecuting attorney, and I have my counsel with me now for this lawsuit. He instructs me to inform you that you won't find anything. As a prosecuting attorney, I know how to plant evidence and destroy evidence. So you're not going to find anything to convict me of anything wrongdoing. Oh, just like with our previous two attorney generals, they got away with their crimes. But yep, yeah, he's learned to battle the mafia of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Destroy the evidence. They're not taking me down without a fight. So there you have it, the post-show of Russell Ballard's funeral.